So if you look real close right there, you'll see Bigfoot. He's fishing for salmon.
Okay, sorry about that intro. I couldn't resist the Bigfoot reference in the beginning. My wife Melissa and I were recently in Oregon, and despite all the hype about it being Squatch country, we never saw a Bigfoot. I guess that's a good thing, right? If you're new here, I'm Ron. Welcome, nice to have you. So last week, Melissa and I took a little time off and had an amazing trip along the Oregon coastline. And let me tell you, this trip delivered everything that we really needed. It had stunning views, adrenaline-packed sand dunes, we'll get to that in a second, whale watching, and some great sushi waterside. Now, the highlight of this trip, again for me, was hitting those Oregon sand dunes. If you don't know what they are, stay tuned, you're gonna like this. I'll tell you more about that in just a second. So quickly, I'll mention I'm going to create chapters down below. If you want to jump around this video a little bit, I probably am going to post a little more sand dune riding than some of you may want to watch. But I wanted to give you a sense of how vast these dunes are if you ever get out to Oregon. So again, you can skip around if you need to. Again, back to that in a second. So we stayed at two amazing Airbnbs, one nestled in Florence, Oregon. The first place we stayed at had a great view of the sand dunes. It was on the other side of the water. You can see that kind of here in the clip. It was a little foggy at the time I took this, but you get the idea. The second place we stayed overlooked the waves of Depoe Bay. Both places were amazing, but for different reasons. Now, Depoe Bay, hands down, had spectacular ocean views. You're right there on the water, and it was really felt like a nice little getaway. Whether we were sipping coffee on the deck of our Airbnb or watching the sunset over the Pacific, both of the places we stayed were gems. We got exactly what we wanted. Not only was it a charming little coastal town, but we got to do quite a bit of whale watching right off our balcony of the rental we had. Just down the street, there was also a whale watching visitor center, super helpful staff, and they pointed out exactly where the whales were on any given day. Now, we were lucky enough to spot several gray whales cruising along the coastline. Many of the gray whales we saw were out there just grazing for hours at a time. They eat up to 2,600 pounds of food per day. Tons of harbor seals around the area as well. So a lot of wildlife. On our way north, we stopped at Newport and had a great lunch, a little sushi place that we found, a waterfront sushi located right on Southwest Bay Boulevard, if you've ever been there. If you're into sushi or just love a great waterfront view while you eat, this place is a must. Fresh fish, creative rolls, and a perfect waterfront backdrop. Plus the surrounding shops along that main strip in Newport are great for just cruising and checking out. For some real interesting shops there. If you've been there, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, another highlight was hiking through the Siuslaw National Forest to see what's called the Drift Creek Falls Suspension Bridge. This trail was really nice, just the right amount of challenge, really not tough at all. Nice little walk, about a mile. And the bridge itself is a really cool looking bridge. Spans across the entire canyon with a waterfall, really nice waterfall down below. And it's the kind of place where you can stop, take a breath, and go, yeah, this is why we travel. It's a 240-foot long bridge, and it reaches from one wall of the canyon to the other, 100 feet above the actual creek itself. Okay, but hands down, the wildest part of the trip was hitting the Oregon sand dunes, and I'm not exaggerating when I say these dunes are absolutely huge. Now, the area is vast, like another planet in and of itself, and it has a lot of shifting sand, wind blowing all over the place. It's easy to really get yourself turned around in there. In fact, visibility can be really tough, and I'll admit I had a hard time navigating in the dune buggy I initially rented. So I made the switch to a four-wheeler quad, and that was really a game changer. The quad had much better visibility and control, at least in my opinion. And I talked to a couple other people. They agreed that the four-wheeler quads were probably a little better to their liking as well. The reason being, on the four-wheeler, you could see right over the front of it, and you could see where the drop-offs are in all the dunes, and kind of, it just felt more visible. When you were in that dune buggy, that four-wheel dune buggy, you had a roll cage around you. It was bigger, had a big front end on it, and a big backside as well. So when you're trying to pull up on these dunes, which can be 20 or 30 foot drops, you sometimes had a hard time seeing over the front of it and where the drop or how high the drop actually was. Same thing going in reverse. So as soon as I got on the four-wheeler, it just felt a lot more comfortable. You could just see everything around you a lot better. And if you've ever ridden out in those conditions, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's like skiing or snowboarding in certain conditions. You get that snow blindness. Same thing happens out on those dunes. So it can get a little tricky. Now, we rented from a company called Torex ATV Rentals. They had a great selection of gear, everything from single-seater solo rides to four-seater ATVs, really whatever you needed, whether you wanted to ride solo or, as a pair or with a group of four. You had pretty much anything you were looking for. Now, just a heads up, they do require, get this, a $1,500 security deposit on some of their vehicles, so yeah, plan ahead. Oh yeah, and I'll quickly mention that yes, it's true, there is actually quicksand out in these dunes. It's not like what you see in the movies where you're just gonna sink up to your neck and game over. It's not like that. But there is quicksand out there, which does make it a little more interesting as well. Now, I'm going to post a lot of the riding that we did if you're interested in that kind of thing. But again, jump ahead in the video. There's chapters down below. If you want to jump ahead, feel free. I wanted to post the majority of the riding we did to give you a sense of just how big this place is. If you Google it, it says they're a product of millions of years of erosion by wind and rain on the Oregon coast. There are about 7,000 acres of sand dunes here. The Oregon dunes are over 100,000 years old and stretch approximately 40 miles. So yeah, they're really big, they're really vast, and it's really easy to get spun around in there. It's hard to tell from the video, but there are some pretty big drop-offs there that you can't really see in the video. The visibility can be really low, and it's hard to see where those 20 or 30 foot drops actually are. I filmed all this with my GoPro 13 and an ND16 filter. The video actually, in my opinion, looks cleaner and clearer than what we were actually riding in. So I'm pretty happy with how the video turned out and the visibility that you guys can see and I can share with you. Okay, final thoughts. From coastlines to canyons and whales to riding, Oregon gave us a bit of everything, whether you're looking for that outdoor adventure, coastal relaxation, or just hanging out by the ocean or seaside. This stretch of Pacific Northwest is worth visiting if you haven't been there. And if you like this kind of content, you know what to do. I won't say it. That's it for this video. Hope you got some value out of it. I'll see you all in the next one. Take care.